Race and police killings, what's going on? This is the first in a series on this issue. I'm not going to talk much about George Floyd, partially just because it's been so long. But at the time of writing the article that I have linked to below, I didn't know the particulars of the event, and I couldn't trust social media or the news media to provide an accurate accounting, let alone the politicians. There's just too much bias and outright lying. I watched the video, which was hard, seeing George struggle and then not struggle anymore. That kind of stuff really affects me. The video doesn't show what happened beforehand, but one officer said they tried to get George in the car for 10 minutes. George was a bouncer and a former athlete, and you can see he's muscular. So it makes sense that they had trouble getting him in the car if he didn't want to get in the car. Why he resisted? Not so sure about that. Still, even though the people nearby were telling ex-officer Derek Chauvin, who's up for second-degree murder charges, to get off his neck, even though George said he was hurting and couldn't breathe, Derek didn't get off until 3.5 minutes after the last visible movement and sounds from George's lips. That I saw, anyways. When the EMT finally told him to get off. 3.5 minutes after he stopped moving. The autopsy showed that George had fentanyl, norfentanyl, and morphine, opioids that can cause you to stop breathing, in his system. And Derek's lawyer said that the drugs were the cause of death. THC and other drugs were also found in his system. However, George has a long history with drugs, so he would be more tolerant of drugs than a new user, so the levels of the drugs in his system were likely not the cause of his death. Both autopsies declared that the drugs didn't kill him, and also note that although he had previously been infected with SARS-CoV-2, which is erroneously and repeatedly identified by the media as COVID-19, which is the disease caused by the virus, it had nothing to do with his condition. The autopsies just don't support the claim that drugs killed George. In fact, Dr. Carl L. Hart, a professor of psychology and psychiatry at Columbia University, who is known for his research in drug abuse and drug addiction, stated that the amount of THC, meth, and fentanyl in his system was not the cause of his behavior or his death. In June, the Hennepin County medical examiner declared that the drugs weren't the cause of death. So everybody except for Derek Chauvin's lawyer is saying, nope, wasn't SARS, and it wasn't the drugs. So instead of this, I'm going to focus on the larger picture nationwide. I mean, we've been having protests and rioting all over the place. Louisville, and I think Chicago, Portland, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., Kenosha, and even overseas. People are upset. And I get it. I absolutely get it. Nobody wants a police force that is corrupt and racist and violent. Well, except for the ones who are like that. But this is not a simple issue. There are lots of complications, okay? So, in my article, I linked to some statistics by Statistica.com that show the number of people shot to death by the police from 2017 to 2020 by race. It breaks it down by whites who are not Hispanic or Latino, whites who are Hispanic or Latino, blacks, Asians, and then the unknowns, where there's no identification of race given. As you can see from the statistics, almost double the number of killings by police are of Caucasians. Does that mean we should rise up and start a CLM movement? Are we being unfairly targeted even more than blacks? I guess not, because from 2017 to 2020, the numbers dropped until they were at the same level as blacks for those 3 previous years. For that matter, as of September of this year, the deaths of blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, and all others, except for the unknowns, also dropped. But we still have 3.5 months to go, so come on, murdering cops, get to work there. That's sarcasm in case you're not aware of it. When you look at the fact that about 60% of the U.S. population are Caucasians, and about another 16% are Hispanic or Latino Caucasians, that means a disproportionately large percentage of blacks, about 222 killings each year of the last 3. And Hispanics, about 162 per year, were being killed by the police. This is to say that the number of people in those populations who are killed by police is larger than for whites relative to the overall population of those races. We should probably ask, what percentage of these 3 races have criminal records? Does it match up with the number of deaths in some way? We also have to be careful not to say that correlation is the same as causation, which is to say, just because you see a correlation between an increase in the number of eggs laid and a visit by the Easter Bunny, it doesn't mean there's a causation. Right? 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 Okay, I also linked to the U.S. population by race on the census website. So, should we, white people, start rioting, burning cars, and looting stores? We absolutely should not. Yes, I am blatantly criticizing the actions of blacks after the death of a black at the hands of police. The fact that blacks do this repeatedly, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt and say a minority of them are doing it. They do it repeatedly when riled up by reports of a black death or abuse, whereas other ethnic groups don't seem to do this much, but I may just be unaware. It does nothing to help the black cause, and in fact probably alienates some people who would otherwise want to help. Such actions are sheer stupidity. To be fair, I've watched videos in which non-blacks were instigating fights at protests and riots, such as in the Kenosha riots after Jacob Blake was shot 7 times while committing crimes and resisting the police. Joseph Rosenbaum, the man killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, repeatedly appeared in videos behaving confrontationally. Then there is the one report where a black protester tells white protesters who are smashing windows and defacing stores to stop because they're going to blame the blacks. That's also linked to, as well as several other things. Unrelated to the issue of race and police brutality, I remember the year that the Denver Broncos won, which is I think 1997, the Super Bowl, and celebrations turned into rioting in Denver, where I just recently moved from Milwaukee, which is ironic, Packers and Broncos win, and then the city goes apeshit. Buildings are just damaged, and cars are burned, and one guy backflips off of, I think it was a street light, and breaks his neck and dies. Yeah, that's really intelligent. I look at all such activities and I shake my head at the idiocy. I understand that some people feel disconnected from the reins of their destiny, which is not true for many people of all races in this country. But rioting, looting, arson, and other crimes make you look primitive and undeserving of any sympathy. You do nothing to further your cause, and you invoke the wrath of closet supremacists with your actions. In other words, your stupid behavior pushes people to choose the other side, and sometimes even into the arms of the hate groups. Stop it. Stop it. Yes, I saw the video of the black woman talking about how she didn't care about the destroyed businesses because they have nothing. So why should those business owners have something? Compelling. I get that people are angry. Some people are thinking about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, in which the most affluent black community in the U.S. at the time was essentially razed to the ground by racists while hundreds were murdered. That's what Juneteenth is about. People feel that they are helpless, yet there are plenty of examples out there of black people who have worked hard to become successful. And it isn't just Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. Look, I'm not the only one who feels that this primitive behavior in the name of Black Lives Matter is wrong. I've talked to several blacks who abhor the BLM organization, an organization I used to subscribe to and have since unsubscribed from because of I'll address it in a different article. Black business owners agree. I've got a link to one heart-wrenching black small business owner filmed crying after rioters loot and destroy his business. Another one, black woman destroys BLM mural. Here's what her motivation was. And then about the Valenti Deli in the Bronx. Watch, black woman store owner rips looters. Tell me Black Lives Matter. You lied. You wanted to loot the store. Maybe it's because some of her employees were foreigners. Well, at least they spoke a foreign language. Maybe that was the justification that those idiots had for destroying that store and looting from it. And then in the lead photo of this article, BLM violates right of black woman to drive down the street. She lets them have it, says they call her racial slurs. You can't even see a black protester in the group in the photograph at the beginning. Now, does that mean there weren't any blacks in the group? I don't know. Maybe they were fake BLM protesters, and that's why they called her a racial slur. So here are the real questions. Why are there proportionately so many more minority deaths, despite the fact that, in terms of just the number of deaths, there are 2 times more non-Hispanic Caucasians being killed than any other race? Experts in sociology, psychology, and other fields would need to answer this. I can only theorize. 2, if the problem is primarily systemic repression and discrimination, as is often claimed, what can be done to resolve that in such a way that minorities feel uplifted and freed rather than being given handouts, which causes numerous problems including poor self-worth, dependence, and laziness? 3, if the problem actually stems from problems within certain communities, what can be done to resolve that in such a way that minorities feel uplifted and freed rather than being given handouts? Again, that causes problems. 4, what are the positive repercussions of the rioting and looting, if any, other than gaining things you didn't have before to keep or sell? I can't really think of any. 5, what are the negative repercussions, other than possibly being caught by the police and imprisoned? Oh, I almost forgot to mention this. You can be called, by law, a domestic terrorist. Yeah, look it up. 6, do the positives outweigh the negatives? If so, what can be done to make sure that the negatives discourage a much larger number of people from engaging in criminal behavior? 3 strikes laws are bad, folks. 7, what percentage of a minority group actually engage in criminal activities during protests? 8, is that percentage primarily those who are already criminals? Are any of them welfare recipients, and should they lose their welfare? 9, why are they committing these crimes? Is it because of avarice, anger, financial need, vengeful thoughts, taking advantage of the situation to get what they want, targeting someone who has upset them, or something else? 10, what percentage of interactions between police, excluding reactions to calls for help and arrests, are related to which races? And what percentage of these become violent or fatal? Why, and in what areas? High, medium, or low risk areas. 11, what percentage of calls and arrests were related to which races? What percentage of those became violent or fatal? Why? In what areas? What were the reasons for the violence and death? Do they have any video corroborating it? I can contribute this. Okay? If one or more of the following apply to you, your risk of death by police increases, and the more of these that apply to you, the more likely it is to happen. And I will add this point. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Okay? If there are more whites that are being killed than blacks or Latinos or Asians, this is what it's about primarily. Yes, there are cities or police departments where there is a big problem with racism, but it is not a national problem. Okay? These are the main reasons you're going to get hurt or killed by the police. Okay? If you're committing a crime, if you're under the influence of legal or illegal substances, are you in an area of high crime? Are you carrying a weapon, brandishing a weapon, using a weapon or other object that can hurt or kill, including tools and vehicles? Are you fleeing from the police, endangering or attacking police, endangering or attacking civilians? Are you suspected of being a criminal? Are you a known criminal? Are you a known felon or ex-convict? Do you look similar to a known criminal? Are you behaving erratically or menacingly? Refusing to comply with police? Arguing with police? Threatening police or others? Do you have a warrant out for your arrest? Do you encounter a police officer with a grudge against you as an individual or because of other factors including race and religion? Are you where the general public cannot easily see what is happening to you? Are you immersed in, or do you come from, a culture that glorifies violence, crime, resistance, and other things like that? Look, if you're worried about being killed by police officers, maybe you should move to the states that have less of that happening. Just saying. Take a look at this map. The darker the red, the more there are of the police killings there are. And also keep in mind when you look at this, police killings are not necessarily about racism, but they are more likely to be about violent criminals resisting arrest, or drunk people, or whatever. I mean, just watch those police reality shows. You'll see it all the time. Belligerent people getting their asses kicked because they're not complying with the police. Okay? Here's that map. I don't know. There we go. Sorry. It's kind of hard to see what's on my screen. So there you go. Choose one of these states that are not high on the list for police killings. Let's see, we've got North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. What is that? Kansas, I guess, south of Minnesota? I forget. Indiana, Ohio, heck, almost all of New England. And a little bit of the southern states there. North and South Carolina, Georgia. What is that next to Louisiana? I forgot. Is that Alabama? I forgot. Anyways, time to think about moving, folks. Now, I've got some links at the bottom. For example, claim police shootings kill more white Americans than black Americans. This claim is correct, but it's misleading at the same time. Next one is on City Lab. What new research says about race and police shootings? And on Newsmax, new police shooting stats show law enforcement is not the enemy. And on Wikipedia, ethnic riots, 1978 to today. So, folks, think about it. I'll get back to you with some more thoughts in a different video.